It's amazing that Hollywood ever gets anything made. The whole process of filmmaking is such a shoddy mess of execs giving notes, scriptwriters and directors fighting over what should appear in the finished product, and actors giving their mostly unwarranted input, that for something even coherent to come out of such a messy, complicated and ridiculous process is a triumph. With most of these triumphs coming to fruition in the editing room, I'm Ben from Whatculture, and here are 10 deleted scenes that radically change famous films. Number 10. Biggs actually meant something. Star Wars: A New Hope inspired generations of kids, adults, and directors, and while it's certainly true that it absolutely nails the science fiction opera genre, there are a couple of undeveloped moments dotted around. Before the rebel assault on the Death Star, we're introduced to Biggs, a childhood friend of Luke's who dies during the battle. Luke's anguish is understandable, but not hugely relatable as the audience isn't fully familiar with his oldest friend. However, an infamous deleted scene at the start of Episode 4 follows Luke rushing to the Tatooine town of Anchorhead to meet up with his friends, Biggs included, providing some much-needed character development and an insight into their relationship. Number 9. Starling loves Hannibal. The initial relationship between FBI profiler Clarice Starling and literal man-eater Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs is dark and twisted, certainly, but ultimately it's all about power and getting the upper hand. In the sequel, Hannibal makes it explicit that the titular nutball has something of a thing for Starling, as evidenced by the ending where she kisses him as a distraction for handcuffing before he severs his own hand. Except in the alternate deleted scene, she never handcuffs him. They make out, and she lets him escape, which totally changes the meaning of the ending, and what Hannibal means to Starling. Number 8. Daredevil had a whole subplot, starring Coolio. The news that Marvel had regained control of the Daredevil license and were going to relaunch the character with a Netflix series was met with sighs of relief after the flustercluck of a superhero flick Mark Steven Johnson put together. And while you're unlikely to see people defending the film that was released in cinemas, there's an increasingly vocal group singing the praises of the director's cut. The trimming and addition of extensive deleted scenes turns it into a very different film, with 30 minutes of additional footage resurrecting a subplot involving Coolio as a drug addict. Number 7. The Shining's ending was almost even weirder. Stanley Kubrick was a perfectionist. The visionary director was notorious for his attention to detail, planning all of his productions for months in advance, and yet he managed to release The Shining into cinemas with an epilogue that he swiftly removed after just 1 week. After the shot of Jack Nicholson frozen and then that mind-bending shot of him standing in the crowd in a sepia-toned photo from the 20s, there was a scene involving Danny and Wendy at hospital. Stuart Ullman, the owner of the Overlook Hotel who hired Jack to be the winter caretaker, shows up to express his sincere condolences. He also informs Wendy that nothing untoward or supernatural was found in the police search, then gives her Jack's yellow tennis ball. The implication being that he knew the hotel was haunted and hired Jack purposefully to go crazy and kill them. Number 6. Divergent could have been more dystopian. The adaptation of Veronica Roth's series of novels features a future society where order is kept by dividing people into different factions based on their virtues. This fucks right up when the protagonist doesn't fit neatly into one. She diverges. See? However, to ensure that the film got a kid-friendly rating, the brutality had to be all but removed, which makes for a particularly neutered take on a violent, oppressive society. Thankfully, those scenes were rescued from the cutting room floor, including one particularly squirmy sequence where somebody gets stabbed in the eye. Might have made the film worth watching. Number 8. John Hammond was actually a villain. Jurassic Park seemed like a series of unfortunate events rather than any sort of sinister plot to off a bunch of paleontologists with cloned dinosaurs. There's a load of deleted scenes, but the one that most radically changes things involved that sickly Triceratops that gets Laura Dern cut off from the rest of the group early on. It transpires that was supposed to start off a subplot where it turns out that park owner John Hammond intentionally did a bunch of dodgy gene splicing stuff, playing God to ensure the dinosaurs lived short, painful lives. More of a mad scientist than a kindly, misguided uncle, then. I suppose you could say he would have run a shit dinosaur park for wankers. # shit dinosaur park for wankers. Number 4. Frozen almost spoiled its central conflict. Elsa is isolated since childhood from her younger sister Anna, owing to an incident where her ability to control ice, snow, and everything cold caused her a little bit of trouble. They grow up fairly distant as a result, with the plot of the film involving another of those incidents, Anna running away, and Elsa trying desperately to find her. Then there's some stuff about reindeer, sassy snowmen, and letting things go, or something. Anyway, in the space of just 45 seconds, a deleted scene shows it could have totally spoiled that plot. It depicts the sisters hanging out, trying on clothes together before Elsa's coronation and implying they're actually pretty good friends after all, robbing the story of both an emotional core and character development. Whoops. Number 3. Loki is actually the rightful heir to Asgard. The Marvel Cinematic Universe has something of a problem when it comes to antagonists, which is probably why they're so eager to use Tom Hiddleston's trickster god Loki as much as possible, despite his unjust lust for the throne of Asgard. Except, a deleted scene from the first Thor film reveals that his desires might actually be justified. After confronting his mother about the revelation that he's part frost giant over Odin's deathbed, the absent Thor and Sleepy King means that Loki is crowned king of Asgard. Technically, nobody ever took that power back from him, so his constant attempts to seize power in later films are more him trying to remind people of that than an actual evil plot. Number 2. Alien eggs and an alternate ending. Ridley Scott's original Alien feels like such a taut, no-frills horror with an instantly iconic set of characters that it's hard to imagine anything was cut away at all. And yet, the film does feature a couple of deleted scenes that have remained on the cutting room floor even after multiple directors' cut releases. The first involved Ripley happening upon crewmates Dallas and Brett, cocooned and being turned into facehugger eggs, which isn't a concept we're introduced to properly until James Cameron's sequel. Even more radical was the original ending, where the alien on Ripley's escape craft killed her and then imitated her voice as it requested safe passage to Earth. Number 1. Anchorman could be a whole different film. The movie that broke Will Ferrell into the big time also became the bane of essentially every comedic actor's existence. Ferrell and director Adam McKay technically collaborated on a script for Anchorman: The Legend of Ron Burgundy, but the majority of the finished film was cut down from hours and hours of improvised jokes and plot lines to the point that people nowadays just assume that's how all comedies are made. As a result, Anchorman took deleted scenes to a whole other level by having enough content that didn't go into the finished product to produce an entirely new film. So if the original's getting a little thin, you could always pop in Wake Up Ron Burgundy, the lost movie, entirely cobbled together from deleted scenes. And that's our list. Are there any deleted scenes you'd have included? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You can even follow me here on Twitter if you fancy. I'm Ben from Whatculture, and thanks for watching.